Welcome to the Dogtor Bros, where we have an honest discussion around vet life in and out of the clinic. My name is Chris, and I'm your doc of the day and your guide through this episode. I'm a veterinarian in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I'm here with my closest friends from vet school.
Hey, this is Adam. I'm a relief veterinarian in Louisville, Kentucky.
Hey, this is Jeff. I'm a dermatology associate veterinarian, also in Louisville, Kentucky.
And this is Chris again. So today, I'd like to welcome a good friend, longtime friend. I've known him since undergrad, and it is Dr. Josh Huitt. He attended Berry College just like I did in Rome, Georgia, earning his bachelor's in animal science. He then attended Lincoln Memorial University's inaugural class of veterinary medicine and received his DVM in 2018. He began his career in South Carolina at a mixed animal clinic where he could be found both in office and assisting local farmers. After 3 years, he relocated to Jacksonville, Florida to work at a GP practice where he is now the medical director. In his time away from work, he enjoys paddleboarding, fishing, cooking, and watching college football, Rocky Top. Welcome, Dr. Josh Huitt.
Hey, thanks guys for having me.
Thanks for coming, man. It's happy to have you on the podcast here. So we always do an opening game or a question to start off the podcast, just kind of loosen everything up. This is for everybody. What's the weirdest movie you've ever seen?
This is Jeff. The weirdest movie I've ever seen is M. Night Shyamalan, not a shocker, The Happening, which is the horror movie where all of the plant pollen cause people to go crazy and then unalive themselves. And it was so strange. That takes a cake for me.
Yeah, that's Mark Wahlberg in that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not his best work.
I hate horror movies, so I probably passed.
This is Adam. Don't judge me, but for me, it has to be The Human Centipede.
Oh my, that is literally what I was going to say.
That movie's crazy. Like, all right, here's the thing. I can get down with some horror movies. I can get down with some weird, like, psychological thriller type stuff, some weird stuff. But that movie, it's just gross. It's just gross for no reason. And yeah, it takes it to a whole nother level for sure.
Yeah, that was actually going to be the one I said too. I was trying to remember the name. I think I was in high school. One of my friends like, dude, you got to watch this movie. And I'm like, what did I just watch? Like, that was terrible. Like,
yeah.
It is so bad.
Yeah, I have not seen any of those. Again, I'm not a horror guy, so never would. Mine is not even that. I guess the weirdest one that I've watched recently was Hurricane Heist. And they did a bank robbery because a hurricane was happening. It's the dumbest movie.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, the whole premise of the movie was just, it's
sure,
pretty
like
much,
Sharknado.
It's Sharknado with a bank robbery thrown into it. Yeah, and no sharks. Yeah. All right. So, Josh, we always ask everyone the same age-old question, and we want to hear it from you as well. What got you interested into vet medicine?
Yeah, so my dad's a physical therapist. He works in human medicine, and growing up with him and kind of just seeing how someone comes in with a problem and then he does a plan to fix it. And so just that, not only like whenever they come in with a problem, he needs to kind of identify the problem itself along with putting everything together and putting the pieces together to get them fixed. So medicine in general was always very interesting to me because it's like a puzzle whenever you just go through each step, and not only just figuring it out, but fixing it too. I had that in high school. I had a biology course, and it was essentially like comparative anatomy. The teacher was absolutely wonderful. I'm sure we can probably all of us go back in our past and find that one teacher that was just like phenomenal. And he got me pretty interested in some of that. So I was like, hey, I'll just go and volunteer at one of the vet clinics in town, and just loved it. I mean, just haven't looked back since. So,
no, that's awesome. It's pretty similar to how a lot of us got started. We just got interested by somebody or into the medical field. So next question is for you is you went to Lincoln Memorial. You were in the inaugural class. What was life like there? What were the pros and cons of attending Lincoln Memorial?
Yeah, so when we all showed up, of course, in most of our cases there, Lincoln was probably not our top choice because at the time we didn't know accreditation of what was going to happen there. So everybody kind of like the first day you get there, like, man, like I'm hoping everything goes well. By the time you realize who was teaching you, I had no question whatsoever that it was not going to be accredited. Probably like within the first week. I mean, a lot of these professors that were traveling around came from, Ohio State. These are some of the people that were writing the board's questions, at the end of the year. And really what it was interesting because what you could do, some of these older professors that have been in vet school for a long, long time, you can go, hey, we're going to make a new vet school. How would you do it differently? And so you can take people's perspective and how do they put together a program like that. And so after seeing that, like probably the first day or first week, I'm like, nope, this is definitely going to be accredited. Everything's great there. So there was a little worry kind of going into it. But like I said, after, about a week, I had no question, I guess, that it wasn't going to go through and everything. But challenges definitely quite a bit because we're the inaugural class. Sometimes what you write down on paper does not make sense. So I know that there was some of these classes that we were taking because some of these professors have kind of done things their own way for so long that that's just how they've always done it, and they couldn't do it. For example, one of the professors, great professor, great lecturer, his test would be like, which of these is true? 5 paragraphs of completely different scenarios. And so you couldn't even like pick through each of them. And then there's only like 10 questions. So like, it was very easy to like fail some of these exams. And, you're getting about halfway through the course and you're like, man, about half our class is not doing good with just this one professor. And so they had to kind of figure out a way and kind of had to help him out. Like, hey, you need to make questions in a different format to, just make things a little bit better instead of just like failing everyone. So it ended up being all right with that, but it definitely was a challenge. I'm sure that they worked out a lot of these kinks after kind of just going through a full year there. So.
No, that's awesome, man. Well, now we're going to open it up to just everybody can kind of jump in here and start firing away questions at you.
This is Jeff. So I have a question for you, Josh. How did you feel and what was your thought process when you were applying to a brand new school as opposed to applying to schools that have a long history of being vet schools? Like you're really like the first class, like getting into that. And what was that process like for you?
Yeah, like I said before, too, it was a little worrisome whenever we were going there, but I knew that I wanted to be a vet, period, and I didn't care how I got there. Didn't know, again, really what to expect at that time, but, was definitely fortunate enough whenever I got there and just realized again that, man, this is heading in the right direction. So
This is Adam, kind of sticking with the theme of, being in that inaugural class. So at Tuskegee, upperclassmen were a big part of our learning. They actually would pair us with an upperclassman, somebody in the grade right ahead of us, just to kind of be there for us if we had any questions along the way of what to expect or, how they navigated certain things that year that they were there. So what was it like kind of having no upperclassmen? I mean, you come in, you're the first people there. There's nobody above you. So nobody to kind of ask what to expect, nobody to kind of, follow through with on where you're going. And then each year, your school is essentially growing all 4 years you're there. So what was that kind of like?
it's hard for me to understand a little bit of the dynamics that you guys had and most of the other vet schools had with a program that's been there for a while. So it's kind of like, well, how do you not, or how do you know what you don't know, I guess, So we definitely leaned on each other, people in our class, just like you guys, I'm sure, leaned on each other with your own classmates. Um, and, just kind of got through it. We were all working through everything together there. So I feel like even because once we were, moving through, first, second, third year, the classes behind us, they actually, what we did kind of pair up with them. But a lot of times too, because, oh man, that did not work out really well last year. So they're changing it up. So even then you kind of didn't know exactly what to expect. You just kind of gave them as best advice as you could. So
And this is Jeff again. I was going to ask, like, what were, if you can remember, like some of the changes between classes as things kind of moved on through the year? Because I mean, I would say even at Tuskegee, we noticed like if there's something that didn't work for a lot of the class, sometimes there were adjustments in what they did from following years. I guess all schools should do that in some respect to improve the class experience and curriculum. But I imagine it would be more, I don't know, maybe more noticeable at a new program. But what did you think about yours and how things went on year to year?
yeah, so I can't think of anything extremely big. As in for like major things that they changed. But I do know that like one thing I remember our first OSCE exam where you go through and we did clinical skills from the first year all the way through into the third year, and then fourth year we were out on clinicals. The first, I was actually part of the first OSCE or the clinical skills testing. And they had you, and of course, everyone's nervous because you don't know what you're going to see once you go in here to do the test. And the first station they had was using forceps and needle drivers to pick up small beads and move them over to a certain container. And you're only allowed to pick up one bead and you had to finish them all. And everybody's in there is just shaking. And I'm like, I knew, it was like, man, I got like half the beads. And they're like, you know what? That probably was not the best station to put for the first station there on the first OSCE. So like I imagine that they changed a little bit of the how they where they put that in with the rotation of things too. But I do remember everyone leaving that going, "Oh my gosh, I did not get as many beads as I needed to," and as I don't think anybody did. So that would probably like small stuff like that. They probably changed up again, kind of going into the classes and how the professors actually design the test. Again, that might be more focused talking and working with the professors and how to make the test. But small things like that is all I can think of at least right now. So
This is Chris again. So you said clinics didn't start till fourth year. Did you do anything clinical at all between first and third year?
yeah, so our third year, we every one of us got at least, and it's been a second, so I'm thinking at least 3 or 4 spays and neuters throughout your third year. And really, it was a team of three, and we rotated. So you got someone that's the assistant, someone that's the surgeon, and then the anesthesiologist. And so you just had a team, and it kind of was the luck of the draw. They tried to. Some people may have gone into their fourth year and they've only done one neuter or one spay, but you've done at least like 4 or 5 surgeries. And then, of course, and granted, you guys probably did too. I over the summer, I went and actually worked at a clinic or volunteered at places like that and at home, and actually worked at a band field. I think my first summer too.
And then that fourth year, which is your clinical year, was that just traveling, or did you have some in class as well? And then also, like, how long were you at each place you went to?
Yeah, they're usually 1 month rotations. Um, there were a few core sites that we had to go to. I know that one of them was actually on campus. We did like a little large animal rotation where they had reached out to some of the local farmers and kind of gotten figured out ways to for us to go and kind of help out with that. Other rotations, like I know that I did like an emergency clinic, and it had the specialty hospitals there too. And I did that one I think 2 months. So and kind of depends on or where your next rotation is. So you tried to schedule things to where like, okay, I'm going to be in Knoxville. I'll be at this one clinic in Knoxville, and then the next 2 months I'm actually going to be at this ER clinic. And so you just tried to time things out as best as you can there. So there were some core rotations. There were definitely electives too. Like I know one of the electives, I just went back home to the vet that I volunteered with when I was in high school, and she's like, "Hey, you go, you do your thing here. I'm right around the corner, or I'm right here if you need me." And so I got a lot of good experience with that too. So
This is Jeff, and I mean, I think that's great. But just to be, um, or just to make sure I understand right, because LMU does not have a teaching hospital, correct?
yeah, and they probably will never have that. I feel like most of those newer vet schools that they're opening up are kind of getting away from that. I feel like with the state schools, a lot of the funding and stuff towards that has to come from, or money wise can come from the state government. And if you're like, hey, we're running short, maybe the vet school doesn't get updated, then you can kind of be, or the vet school could essentially uh, be on like probation, not probation. Y'all probably know what I'm trying to say, or just get in trouble where they need to update things before they can proceed. So LMU wouldn't have to worry about that because it's a distributive model.
And what was that? I guess like for your thought process, because I imagine depending on the student, like that can be intimidating too, having to decide where you're going to go for your fourth year for clinics versus at other schools that kind of have it set laid out for you when you have a full teaching hospital. What was that like?
Yeah, so you went through like a long list of all the clinical sites that they had, and again, you tried to. It's honestly like choosing for classes when you were in college. You just did your best and you put in what you would like to do, and then they would send you one back. They would work with you quite a bit if there was something that just this is not going to go well with my schedule. But I feel like the majority of the time, everyone was pretty pleased with where they were at. I do know because we actually hired an LMU grad that just graduated this last year, and so I was like, I knew I was going to be talking to you guys, so I'm going to give her a call and just see what has changed with that. And it sounds like they've done quite a bit with it. They've improved it quite a bit. I do know with the my clinical year, it was really on us to find living situations in some of these places, which like I know I did like an Airbnb for a month once in Knoxville, which is not cheap. Obviously, if there was somewhere close to home, then you would try to aim to maybe I'll just stay home with my parents and travel from there. Some places offered like housing on site. When I was talking to our new grad, she actually told me that there's a lot. One, way more clinical sites than there were whenever I was there, which is expected just because it's they're going to be growing and constantly looking for more clinical sites. But two, it sounds like more of the clinical sites actually had stipends for them to find housing and put them up in places like that. So it seems like they've definitely really revamped some of that part, anyways.
Yeah, that's really good to hear because I would say, like, even when we had time off over at Tuskegee for our preceptorships, like when I went to LSU for a month, I networked, like, I knew a few friends over there, and then I ended up staying with one of the interns for free because she just had space. But I like my food and everything was just out of my own pocket, aka my loans. So I imagine I didn't even think about that as far as like fourth year students for LMU, where it's just like if you're going, you kind of got to figure it out. So it's good to hear that there's some kind of help that they can get in the stipends and things. That's great.
Yeah, I stayed at one clinic and they had an upstairs like little room. It honestly looked like a little dorm room, and the bathroom was like around the corner, but it was an open concept. So when you came out, you're kind of looking over a balcony of the entire clinic, and so it was
Wow.
sometimes awkward when I'm like coming out to go get ready to go work, and then like everyone's down there working already. I was like, oh, hey guys, like kind of walking down the hallway.
Just in your towel, just like
Yeah. Well, I usually was dressed just like if you were in a dorm room, just going up and down the hallways. But
Nobody look up.
I kind of felt like that a little bit there, but it worked out because again, I had somewhere to stay, and yeah.
this is Chris. Where was like the farthest location that you would or you could travel to or you travel to for your rotations?
Yeah, I didn't go like terribly far. I know some of our classmates, there was a lot of clinical sites up in like New York. That I think that they did some rotations up there. I think actually is Louisville is one of the clinics I went to there might be the furthest away. So that I'd been to.
Did you have kind of like a favorite place you went, a specific area that you enjoyed more, like in terms of large animal versus small animal versus surgery, whatever?
Um, I had some that were not my favorites.
Tell us everything.
I mean, I've definitely had some like I guess I felt like bad experiences, but it was just the way that I just wouldn't gel with that group of people. I guess really just working with them and stuff. I definitely had. I don't know that I can just pick like a solid, like, hey, this was a favorite. I learned a bunch of different qualities at each one of them. I mean, when it comes to, and everyone's different. When you have a student come by, or you have a new vet or something that you hire, some people are going to be like, here's the keys, go ahead, take over everything. And there's other people that are going to be like, well, I only want you to do this much. And kind of slowly, or don't let you do as much as you'd like to do. I feel like when I went back home, with the vet that I'd volunteered with when I was in high school, she just, hey, you probably know what you're doing. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you do it all. And again, I kind of learned by just being pushed in the deep end, anyways. And so, I remember she'd have me doing these big dog spays, and everyone's waiting to go to lunch for me to finish up. So, like, I am like literally as the student holding the whole clinic up from going to lunch, and I'd get out and say, I was working as fast as I could. And she goes, and I'll never forget. He goes, it's a big dog spay. Like, you're never gonna like them. I promise you. Like, you're gonna do them, and you can do them quicker and better, but it's a big dog spay. They're always going to be just like, oh man, that was a handful. Like, so, I've always remember her saying that. So I feel like that would probably be one of my favorite sites there, just because I was able to do more, I guess.
And this is Jeff. I just wanted to comment on that because I do think it goes a long way when you're student shadowing. Like we notice, and my clinic has a regular, let's say we get a couple LMU students per year that come through for the full month. And one of my favorites, shout out to Dr. Dan Duran, who I'm actually going to see in Boston shortly. But he was a student that I kept up with, and he's now graduated and is working full-time doctor now and in GP. But like we became good friends because he was like really just like he just wanted to be involved, wanted to do things, wanted to get his hands dirty. So the more he wanted to do, I was like, yeah, you take off. Like you're in charge of this one. You let me know what you think about this case, and I'll just back you up. And really got interested. And even though he wasn't trying to be a dermatologist, he was just like, I know this is important. Let me absorb what I can. And I think that's like a good tip for any students listening is like, when you're on rotation, just get what you can out of it, even if it's not something that you think you're going to specialize in or whatnot, but you never know what you're going to get out of it. And the more you want to do, the more your clinicians are going to let you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I went to a clinic that had a lot of fear-free, um, and I think they were a fear-free clinic, to be honest with you. And I learned a whole lot there because you go to all these different clinics, and it's just a different approach and how you approach anything, everything there. Even just like the dog coming in and the client coming in into the lobby, like figuring out a way to like you don't keep them up there with a bunch of other dogs, letting them get stressed out, and it's interesting just what you'll learn, even if it's something that you don't have interest in. Like you said too, it sounded like they didn't have any interest in dermatology, but was there to learn and ready to go with it. So
For sure. This is Chris. So, um, going for like pre-vet students, what tips would you give for any students applying to LMU?
I mean, just in general for pre-vet students, I mean, study, study. Make sure you get good grades. Go volunteer at clinics. Work as a tech, things like that. As for LMU, I feel like they're very open. Anytime you wanted to go do a tour or anything like that, I'm pretty sure that you just contact them. You can go check the place out. All the professors were extremely friendly and just great. So. Um, yeah, and they're opening a new site down here in Orange Park, just down the road from me too. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I didn't know if y'all heard it. I may have talked to you about that, Chris, but
Yeah, you mentioned it. Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. That there's I guess, a new LMU location in Jacksonville, right?
yeah, it says Orange Park, which is just like kind of on the outside of Jacksonville. What's crazy is like I graduated LMU, moved to South Carolina, moved to Jacksonville, Florida, and they're literally opening up a second site like 20 minutes from the clinic I work at. It's just like, wow, that's very random, but
Next thing you'll be teaching there.
yeah, I'm sure we'll be a clinical site, and I've already met with the dean, Dr. Carney, and hopefully work something out to help them out if they need it. So
Oh, that'd be awesome. Well, to kind of round things up for this episode here, we got an ending question here. If your dog could talk, what's the first thing it would say to you?
This is Jeff, and I'm certain on the weekends Renly would say, "Hey, could you get up earlier and let me out? I see you sleeping in a little bit. I know you hear me whining in here. Like, come let me out immediately.
This is Adam. I think Indy would just ask for food nonstop. Just more food.
Yes.
I think that's all he wants is food.
With some expletives.
He'd be like, "Are you sure you fed me? Because I feel pretty hungry."
He would gaslight you all day long.
He would. He would. That's just his personality. He already does. So
I've been fed in hours.
This is pretty funny because Kaylee and I probably go through this conversation and ask this question probably like once a month at least. I think for both of our dogs, for Margot, she would be nonstop saying like, "Ball, let's play ball, let's play ball, let's play ball, let's play ball, let's play ball," until there'd be it's got to be like the up or is it up is when we're like squirrel, like and until that happens, like, and then Hallie would 100%, like you said, food. It's gonna be food. Ball maybe thrown in there every once in a while. I know I've made jokes with clients before, and they're like, "Yeah, until they can start talking to us." And they're like, "Oh, that would be so great." You may say that about your dog. I don't know if I want mine talking to me all the time. So they would not stop, I don't think.
This is Chris. So it's funny you say that about ball, Josh, because Dyson, when he was younger, I swear would just be about Frisbee. He would want to he would say Frisbee, like all day long. I think now it would be food or, "Hey, have you fed me yet? Or are you going to finish that?" Like those are probably his top things that he's going to say. So it sounds like all our dogs are going to gaslight us about not being fed enough.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, man, for coming on to this episode. Is there anywhere where we can reach you or people can reach you on Instagram or email you or whatever?
You can send me a message or something through Instagram, and I can send you that info.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put that into the show notes here.
All right.
Thank you once again for joining us on the Dogtor Bros.
If you would like to support us, please share this episode with others who may be interested in today's topic, and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Would you like to influence our next episode? We love hearing your opinions and thoughts. Your comments may be our next topic.
Please leave us suggestions via email at thedoctorbros@gmail.com, DM us at thedoctorbros on Instagram, or leave us comments on our posts. Again, this is Brandon. You can reach me at Dr. Mason IM on Instagram.
And this is Chris, and you can reach me on Instagram at dr.chrishernandez.
And this is Jeff. You can find me on TikTok or Instagram at DermDrJeff, DermDogtorJeff.
And this is Adam. You can reach me on Instagram at DrAdamDVM. That's DrAdamDVM.